Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings, to the WeAreChange news show. And in this video, I specifically wanted to talk about how the very enemies of Donald Trump are not only making him more popular, but they're helping him while destroying the national discourse. And of course, in this video, we're going to be focusing on Omarosa and Peter Strzok. But before we start, just know that this broadcast is mainly sponsored by you and your support, especially through platforms like patreon.com/WeAreChange, where we are posting every single day. The link will be in the description below, and there's many hippie levels that you could join and help support this broadcast. Now, for me, everything that has been happening in the national political discourse has been extremely telling, especially the narratives that is being run by the mainstream media and the Donald Trump administration. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was the recent firing of Peter Strzok, who was actually fired from the FBI Friday, but the news of it broke Monday, with surprisingly no leaks at all coming from the FBI of this news. And of course, this was a major move that got a lot of media attention. And people need to realize that this wasn't just any ordinary agent, but he was one of the main components responsible for not only the Trump campaign being spied on, leading of course to the Russian collusion investigation that is still ongoing, but he was also the person who spearheaded the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails, which the FBI ultimately decided not to pursue criminal charges against Hillary Clinton, even though it was very clear that she destroyed evidence in her own case. And of course, many people point towards bias on the FBI for failure to go after Hillary Clinton, and people on the right do have an argument, since Peter Strzok's private text messages came out proving that he was very anti-Trump. And this is where I have to criticize the media, especially for Reuters, that painted this story as FBI agent Strzok, who criticized Trump in text messages, is fired. And if you actually look at the text messages, Peter Strzok didn't just criticize Donald Trump, but said, and I quote, "We'll stop Trump." And responding to another text messages whether Donald Trump would be president, he said, quote, no, he won't. We'll stop it. There was also other weird text messages about a secret society within the FBI, and honestly, from an objective perspective, these text messages should alarm a lot of people, especially at the power that Peter Strzok actually had within the FBI. Of course, Donald Trump answered back on Twitter, of course happy with the news of the firing, saying that based on the fact that Strzok was in charge of the witch hunt, will it be dropped? Saying that it is a total hoax and that there was no collusion, no obstruction. He also went on to call Peter Strzok a fraud who rigged the investigation he started, and that the only collusion and obstruction was by crooked Hillary. Interestingly enough, Peter Strzok, after his firing, actually started his own Twitter page, just as of yesterday being officially verified by Twitter, gaining 36,000 followers, and tweeted a response letter with a link to a GoFundMe account, where he has officially by now raised $322,401 as of yesterday, so people could support his legal costs and his lost income, even though he's most likely going to get a retirement and is virtually guaranteed lucrative private sector employment and most likely a book deal that is already in the works. And now, in related other self-important politically biased book deals, we of course have Omarosa, that's on her book tour right now, leading up to the debut of her tell-all book with her experiences with Donald Trump as a former White House staffer and Apprentice star. She's galvanizing everyone's attention because of secret audio recordings that she has of Donald Trump and the White House staff. And of course, Donald Trump responded to Omarosa by saying, quote, "When you give a crazed, crying lowlife a break and give her a job at the White House, I guess it just doesn't work out. Good work by General Kelly for quickly firing that dog." And yeah, this is what our political discourse is about right now. Very interestingly, Omarosa was also under an NDA, a non-disclosure act, which prevents her from talking about what happened at the White House, which she violated, and now which President Trump's campaign is filing charges against and suing Omarosa for disparaging the president in her new book, secretly recording conversations with Trump and the White House staff, and will likely cost Omarosa millions of dollars that she's getting right now from her book deal. Now, according to some sources, Omarosa was physically dragged from the White House when she was fired, which she claimed was false imprisonment during her firing and is accusing Donald Trump of lying. And she actually released audio tapes of John Kelly firing her and the phone call that happened between her and Donald Trump, which if you actually listen to, John Kelly actually acted very professionally, and then Donald Trump said, that he had, quote, no knowledge of the firing and was very sorry that this had to happen. And now the story is heating up with more speculation as news is coming out that Omarosa has secretly recorded Jared and Ivanka Trump. The latest thing that everyone is talking about is Omarosa's claim that there's a new tape showing Trump's campaign staffers discussing a racial slur, which as of now the Trump campaign is denying actually happened, which she actually responded with by releasing audio of former Trump campaign spokesperson Catherine Pearson talking to Omarosa about that very specific issue. The issue of Donald Trump allegedly using the N-word during the taping of The Apprentice. But the conversation was with Omarosa, who did bring up the issue. And now, of course, the mainstream media is obsessing about all of this right now. But for me, one thing that is very telling is that even NPR called it out, how Omarosa told NPR she heard Trump use the N-word on tape, but she contradicted herself in her own tell-all book, where in that book, Omarosa uses Frank Luntz as her main source, to which he officially responded on Twitter by saying that he is in Omarosa's book on page 149, where, quote, she claims to have heard from someone who heard from me that I heard Trump use the N-word. And then he goes on, not only is this flat out false, I've never even heard such a thing, but Omarosa didn't even make an effort to call or email me to verify. Very shoddy work. And then he says it seems like certain book publishers these days care more about getting a release out than getting the facts down. And for me, in my own personal opinion, when you look at the situation of Peter Strzok and Omarosa, it looks like two people who are only out there to make a buck, who only care about themselves and their popularity. The mainstream media is eating all of this up, promoting this to the front page. Meanwhile, they're just helping self-serving people who are only out there for themselves. When you actually look at the stories and the details of the stories and the contradictions and the lies and the clear political bias, this will only help Donald Trump when people actually look at the details of this, galvanize his base, and only make him more popular. And while the mainstream media puts responsibility on these two figures to go against Trump, to take Trump down, these people are running to the bank with all the money that they're making, and these people will never take Donald Trump down, but only making him more popular within the eyes of his own constituents. And with Donald Trump's, let's just say it, unprofessional responses to these people, calling them dogs, it's causing the political discourse in the United States to be about a TMZ-style ego fest based on trivial issues instead of the issues that actually matter and do affect us. And then things that the mainstream media should legitimately be concentrating on that actually does have an effect on people are swept underneath the rug, like the around 40 young Yemenis children that were massacred and bombed by the US-backed Saudi coalition, with the US Pentagon saying we may never know who supplied those weapons. Meanwhile, the fragments came back from Lockheed Martin, weapons directly coming from Donald Trump that is engaging in the humanitarian crisis in Yemen right now by supplying, aiding, and fighting alongside Saudi Arabia, with even troops on the ground inside of Yemen right now, and even according to the AP, officially aligning themselves with Al-Qaeda, going after the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. Yes, the United States is on the side of Al-Qaeda in a war happening now that the mainstream media refuses to talk about, except for some hypothetical N-word tape that may or may not be out there. And while all of this is happening, Donald Trump is celebrating his militarism and only expanding the military-industrial complex, as he just signed another $416 billion military spending bill, with over $21 billion used for nuclear weapons. And with the United States always being at war, you could bet your bottom dollar if a country invests the majority of its money into the military, they're going to be using the military. As an example, with Madeleine Albright even once saying, what's the point of having this superb military if we can't use it? And guess what? This message you will not hear on the mainstream media because of the military-industrial complex tentacles within that institution, and they're expanding tentacles into social media. As we have learned that a 4-person NATO-funded team advises Facebook on what people should and should not see. This is why we have seen a string of censorship efforts, not only on right-wing Alex Jones, but also on left-wing Telesur, a left-leaning liberal news organization that is sponsored by Latin American countries that is mainly against neoliberal policies. And I disagree with both Alex Jones and Telesur on their coverage and how they conduct their news organizations, but they shouldn't be censored, especially when giant corporations connected with the military are deciding what could be in the public discourse and not. And what they're doing is disrupting people's ability to learn and think for themselves. And it's only going to get worse from here, especially with us being labeled and attacked as we have been throughout the last few years because of this simple anti-war message. And even as the making of this video, Alex Jones decided to be on Vimeo, which took him off and removed him as soon as he started uploading content on that website. And with this recent wave of censorship and dumbassification of the mainstream media about trivial issues, creating the political discourse in a TMZ-style ego fest, this is why we have the, I can't curse here, the hooey kind of situation that we all have to deal with in our society. And of course, the only thing fighting against this is, of course, independent media, your donations, your support, and you sharing this video to get this important message out there, because if you don't, no one else will. And you guys have been a very big part of that, and that's why I always end every broadcast by saying, love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more.